Hello, friends. Today you'll witness a family dinner that unravels the illusion of unity. This is the gratitude ritual, a tradition enforced by one woman's unyielding command. Behind the smiles and thanks lies a silent erosion of will. Watch closely. The dining room light hung low, casting a warm glow over Mara's heirloom table, its polished oak surface etched with generations of family lore. Scratches from hurried knives, stains from spilled wine during toasts to unbreakable bonds. Lena smoothed the tablecloth one last time, her fingers lingering on the lace edges Mara had insisted on, the fabric stiff with expectation. Around the table sat the extended family, aunts whispering approvals, uncles nodding along, Daniel at the head, his eyes flicking between his plate and his mother. Mara stood at the far end, her voice a gentle command wrapped in silk. Now, as we always do, we'll go around and share our gratitudes. Start with the children, Lena dear. It keeps the ritual pure. Her smile was a crown, unyielding, the kind that made dissent feel like betrayal. Lena nodded, her own lips curving into the practiced arc she'd perfected over years of these dinners. Quiet submission settled in her chest like a familiar weight, heavy but bearable, as long as it kept the peace. The kids went first, little ones mumbling thanks for school and toys, then the relatives, their words flowing like clockwork. Lena's turn came, and she spoke softly. "I'm grateful for this family, for all of us together." The words tasted like ash, but she swallowed them with her smile, eyes on the table's gleaming wood, where her reflection stared back, blurred and obedient. Mara beamed, reaching across to pat Lena's hand. "See? That's the spirit. Family first, always." But as the ritual dragged on, Mara steering every pause, every elaboration, Lena felt the shift inside. A tightness coiled in her stomach, a flutter in her throat she couldn't quite ignore. Her smile held, but her pulse quickened, hands clammy under the table. Why did gratitude feel like surrender? Daniel caught her eye once, his brow furrowing slightly, but he said nothing, turning back to his mother's next directive. The distance between them stretched, unspoken conversations piling up like unread mail. By the time plates were cleared, the pakornost had frayed into something sharper. Restrained anxiety humming beneath her skin, a quiet alarm she dared not voice. How much longer could she stay silent, letting the illusion of harmony paper over the control etched into every groove of that table? Later that evening, Lena's hands trembled as she fumbled for her phone in the dim kitchen light, the echo of Mara's words still slicing through her like glass. The family dinner had unraveled. Mara's casual remark about Lena's overly modern parenting, delivered with that honeyed smile over the heirloom table, had left the room in polite laughter. But inside, Lena's chest tightened, a vice squeezing her ribs. Why did it always feel like this? Like every concession she made was just another thread pulling her apart. She scrolled to Asha's number, heart hammering. Panic clawed up her throat, hot, insistent. What if she spoke up next time? What if Daniel looked at her like she was the villain, the one breaking the family code? The phone pressed to her ear, cool against her flushed skin, a lifeline in the suffocating quiet of the house. The ritual's aftermath lingered. Empty plates stacked just so, the weight of unspoken expectations. Asha picked up on the second ring. "Lena, you okay?" The voice was soft, steady like a hand extended in the dark. Lena sank onto the stool by the counter, the phone now a tether pulling her from the chaos. I don't know. Mara just... At dinner, she said I was spoiling the kids by not following her ways. Everyone nodded like it was nothing, and I just sat there, smiling. God, Asha, why do I do that? Why do I keep bending until I break? Asha's breath came even through the line, a rhythm Lena could lean into. Breathe with me. In, out. You're not bending alone anymore. Tell me what you're feeling right now. The words tumbled out, raw and jagged. The fear of losing Daniel's easy affection, the terror that setting a boundary would shatter the fragile peace she'd built for the kids. Panic peaked, a wave crashing over her. Visions of empty rooms, judgmental stares, her own voice silenced forever. But as Asha listened, murmuring affirmations, "You're allowed to have edges, Lena. That's not betrayal. That's survival." The vice loosened just a fraction. Relief seeped in, warm and tentative, like sunlight piercing fog. For the first time, admitting the fear aloud didn't feel like surrender. It felt like the first step toward holding on to herself. In the pause, Daniel's laughter from the living room filtered in, distant and hollow. A pang of emptiness hit. Would he ever see this side of her? The call ended with Asha's promise to meet soon, but the question hung in Lena's mind, unanswered. Could she stop pouring herself out for everyone, without watching the love drain away too? The phone slipped from her hand, but the relief lingered, a quiet spark in the storm. A few evenings later, the dining room hummed with the low chatter of extended family, silverware clinking against plates like tiny accusations. Lena's hands trembled as she passed the roasted chicken, her carefully planned menu now a battlefield. Mara's heirloom table stretched between them, its polished oak gleaming under the chandelier, a relic of generations, heavy with unspoken rules. She pushed back her chair, mumbling an excuse about the kitchen, fleeing to the powder room. Door locked, she slid to the floor, knees to chest, heart hammering. Tears stung, but worse was the fear uncoiling. How much more of this ritual before it shatters me? The lie she'd clung to, that sacrifice would earn love, crumbled. She couldn't stay silent, not anymore. Fumbling for her phone, Lena dialed Asha, voice breaking on the first ring. "Asha, I can't breathe." The words tumbled out, raw and jagged. "Mara just tore into me at dinner, in front of everyone. My cooking, my choices, like I'm some child who can't decide. And Daniel, he just sat there. God, what if this is it? What if I lose him, the kids, everything, because I won't keep bending?" Asha's voice was steady, a lifeline. "Lena, breathe with me. You're not the problem. That's her control, not your failure. You've been carrying this alone too long." The panic ebbed, leaving exhaustion in its wake. A bone-deep weariness laced with something new, a quiet resolve hardening in her core. Lena wiped her face, staring at the door. The table waited out there, a symbol of the weight she could no longer shoulder alone. For the first time, she felt the pull to demand her space, to voice the pain aloud. But the question lingered, unanswered. How much more before she truly stood? The following afternoon, Lena slumped into the worn armchair in Asha's living room. The late afternoon light filtering through sheer curtains like a hesitant confession. Her hands trembled around a cooling mug of chamomile tea, the steam long gone. "I don't know why I keep doing it, Asha. At dinner last night, Mara just dismantled me over that stupid heirloom table. Said my way of setting the plates was disrespectful to tradition. And I just nodded, smiled, like it's nothing." Asha sat across from her, legs crossed, her dark eyes steady but kind, not probing too deep. She leaned forward slightly, the room's quiet amplifying the soft creak of the chair. "It's not nothing, Lena. That's the point. You're carrying this weight like it's your job to hold the whole family up. But love? Real love doesn't demand you erase yourself to prove it. Lena's brow furrowed, confusion twisting her features like a knot she couldn't untie. But if I don't, they'll think I'm selfish. Daniel. He barely said a word. Just sat there letting it happen. What if pushing back means losing him? Losing everything we've built? Asha nodded slowly, her voice a gentle anchor. Let's reframe this. Imagine it's not about sacrifice equaling love. What if it's the opposite? What if true connection starts when you claim your own space? You're not the villain for wanting boundaries. You're human. Think about it. Not as guilt, but as a choice. What would you say to one of your kids in your shoes? The words hung there, pulling Lena inward. Her mind raced, fragments of dinners and silent nights colliding. Self-sacrifice as love? It had always felt right, a currency for belonging. But now, doubt flickered. Maybe it was just chains disguised as devotion. Her breath hitched, the confusion swirling thicker, then easing as Asha's calm seeped in, like balm on raw skin. Asha glanced at the side table, where Lena's battered journal lay forgotten, its cover frayed from years of neglect. Why don't you try writing it down? Not for anyone else, just for you. What's one boundary you need right now? Lena hesitated, then reached for it. The leather was cool under her fingers, heavy with dust and unspoken words. She flipped it open, the blank page staring back like a mirror. Pen in hand, she scrawled, I don't have to shrink to fit their table. My home. My rules. The act felt foreign, vulnerable. Could she rewrite herself here, free from the twists of expectation? The question lingered as her shoulders relaxed, a tentative calm blooming amid the storm. A week later, the feverish whimpers of the twins echoed through the house like muffled alarms. Lena knelt by their beds, pressing cool cloths to their foreheads, her hands trembling as she measured the pediatric syrup. The air smelled of chicken broth and eucalyptus oil, her remedies simple and instinctive. But then the front door clicked open downstairs, unannounced, and Mara's voice sliced through the quiet. Where's my darlings? Grandma's here to fix this. Lena's stomach knotted. She hurried down the hall, but Mara was already marching up the stairs, arms laden with bags of herbal teas, tinctures, and a bulky thermometer that looked like it belonged in a museum. Daniel trailed behind, his face a mask of weary neutrality. Mom says she knows what works, he murmured, avoiding Lena's eyes. In the children's room, Mara took over without a pause. She shooed Lena aside with a brisk wave. Out of the way, dear. You've let it go too long. And began her regime, forcing sips of bitter concoctions down the boys' throats, ignoring their coughs and cries. This is how we did it in my day. No coddling. She rearranged the blankets into precise folds, checked pulses with authoritative prods, dictating the schedule. Naps at exact intervals, no screens, and mandatory family prayers at dusk to ward off the spirits. Lena stood frozen in the doorway, her suggestions, hydrating with their favorite electrolyte drinks, calling the doctor, brushed off like dust. You're too soft, Lena. They'll get worse without structure. Anxiety clawed at her chest, hot and unrelenting. The boys whimpered louder, one reaching for her, but Mara blocked the path, her body a barrier. Daniel hovered, nodding along. She's just worried, Len. Let her help. But it wasn't help. It was takeover. Mara's hands everywhere, erasing Lena's touch. The room shrank, the walls pressing in. Lena slipped out, heart pounding, and headed to the kitchen for a glass of water. Something to steady her. But the door was ajar. And inside, Mara had already commandeered the counters, brewing her potions, the steam fogging the windows. As Lena pushed it open, Mara glanced up sharply. "Not now. This needs focus." The door swung shut behind Lena, latching with a soft, final click. Closed, sealing her out. From the hall, she heard the clink of jars, Mara's low mutter to Daniel. "She doesn't know what's best. I'll handle it." Leaning against the wall, breath shallow, Lena's mind raced. This wasn't the first time. The flu last winter, the teething fits. Every sniffle a summons for Mara's wisdom. Each intrusion chipped away, demanding Lena's silence, her surrender, just to keep the peace. The boy's cries filtered through, weaker now, subdued by the regime. How many more times would she watch her children become pawns in this game, her own voice swallowed? The pattern stared back, sacrifice after sacrifice, echoing the traumas Mara had inflicted on her own, now passed like an heirloom curse. Autonomy flickered in her thoughts. Not rebellion, but survival. She pressed her palm to the closed kitchen door, feeling the warmth of control on the other side, and wondered if peace was worth this cage. That same night, the twins' fever had spiked just after midnight, their small bodies slick with sweat under the thin sheets. Lena had been up for hours, alternating cool cloths and hushed reassurances in the dim nursery light. The house felt like a pressure cooker, the air thick with the scent of chamomile tea she'd brewed to soothe them. But then the doorbell rang, insistent, like a summons. Mara didn't wait for an answer. She pushed through the front door Daniel had cracked open, her arms laden with a thermos of her special broth and a bag of herbal remedies. "I knew you'd need me," she declared, her voice slicing through the quiet like a knife through silk. Daniel hovered behind her, his face etched with that familiar mix of relief and apology. But he didn't meet Lena's eyes. Lena stood in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed over her rumpled nightshirt, the closed door to the nursery, a flimsy barrier behind her. She'd locked it earlier, a small act of defiance to carve out space for her instincts. The pediatrician's advice on meds and monitoring, not Mara's folklore cures. But now Mara breezed past, ignoring the latch, her hand already on the knob. "Let me see my grandbabies. You're exhausting yourself, Lena. Daniel, tell her to rest." Daniel nodded too quickly. "Mom's right. You've been at this all night. Go lie down. I'll handle it." His words landed like a dismissal, casual as passing the salt at dinner. He chose her again, folding into the ritual of deference, the one that painted Lena as the outsider, the one who disrupted the family flow. Disappointment twisted in Lena's gut first, sharp and familiar, like biting into something rotten you'd hoped was sweet. She watched him follow Mara into the nursery, the door clicking shut behind them, sealing her out. Her hands trembled as she gripped the kitchen counter, the cool tile grounding her against the rising tide. All those nights she'd bitten her tongue, sacrificed her voice for this fragile peace. Pouring tea, nodding through the intrusions, believing it would earn her a place at the table. But it was routine now. Her exhaustion just another offering on Mara's altar. The muffled voices from the nursery filtered through, Mara's coos, Daniel's low agreements. Lena slid down to the floor, back against the closed door, her breath hitching. Despair clawed up, heavy and unrelenting, as the pattern crystallized. Her silence wasn't protection, it was erasure. How much more of herself would she lose before this house felt like home again? What was worth the fight? The man she loved? Or the sanctuary she'd built brick by silent brick? The next morning, after the crisis had passed, Lena's hand trembled on the doorknob, the cool metal biting into her palm like a warning. The house was finally quiet. Daniel's car had pulled away hours ago, the twins tucked in upstairs, their soft breaths a fragile rhythm against the silence. But inside her, the storm churned. She twisted the lock, the click echoing sharp and final, like a vow she wasn't sure she could keep. The key dangled from her fingers, heavy with unspoken choices. How many more times would she unlock this door for Mara's uninvited rituals, letting the old woman's expectations flood in like smoke? She sank onto the edge of the bed, the battered journal clutched to her chest. Her heart raced, anxiety coiling tight in her gut. Another dinner tomorrow, another round of polite deference at the heirloom table where every smile hid a demand. What if speaking up shattered everything? What if silence was the only glue holding her family together? But the thoughts wouldn't stop, pressing in, relentless. She flipped open the pages, the worn leather creaking like her resolve cracking open. Her pen scratched across the paper, words spilling out in jagged bursts. Sacrifice isn't love, it's erasure. I give up pieces of myself at every meal, every visit, thinking it'll buy peace. But it doesn't. It just leaves me hollow, and then fuller. The anxiety twisted sharper, a knot of fear. Daniel's face during the twins' fever last week, siding with Mara, his hand on her shoulder instead of Lena's. The memory burned, hot and unwelcome. Deeper, she wrote, the ink blurring as her breath quickened. How many more? How many nights do I swallow my voice to keep the illusion of harmony? The door stays locked now. No more barging in, no more unsolicited advice on my children, my home. I'll tell Daniel tonight, not in whispers, but clear. Boundaries aren't walls, they're the frame that holds us up. The words fueled something fiercer, anxiety igniting into anger, a slow burn rising in her chest. Anger at Mara for wielding tradition like a weapon, at Daniel for his hesitation, at herself for believing her needs were negotiable. She slammed the journal shut, the key now warm in her fist. This was her sanctuary, not a stage for performances. Autonomy wasn't betrayal. It was the love she'd been starving for. But as she stared at the locked door, the question lingered, unanswered in the dim light. How many more sacrifices before the illusion crumbled for good? That evening, the kitchen light hummed low, casting long shadows across the cluttered counter where takeout containers still lingered from dinner. Lena stood by the sink, her hands gripping the edge, knuckles pale. The twins were finally asleep upstairs, but the house felt heavier tonight, like it was holding its breath. The battered journal lay abandoned on the table, its pages splayed open from where she'd left it mid-sentence earlier. Ink smudged from her hurried scrawl about the latest intrusion. "Daniel," she said, her voice starting sharp, edged with the anxiety that had knotted her stomach all evening. She turned to face him, where he leaned against the fridge, scrolling his phone like it was a shield. "We can't keep doing this. Mara's not just opinionated. She's tearing into the kids, and you see it, don't you?" He glanced up, brow furrowing, but said nothing. The silence stretched, thick as the steam from the cooling kettle. Lena pushed off the counter, stepping closer, her heart pounding. Last week, when she helped with their bedtime routine, she told Mia she's too clingy, that real girls don't cry for mommy. Mia's 6, Daniel. She's already pulling away, hiding in her room because she doesn't want to upset Grandma. And Theo, he's mimicking her, bossing his sister around like it's a game of control. This isn't family, it's erosion. Our home. It's crumbling under her, and we're letting it happen. Daniel set his phone down slowly, crossing his arms. Mom's just trying to... No. Lena's voice cracked, but she straightened. The tremor in her chest shifting, hardening into something firmer. She wasn't pleading anymore. This was mapping the damage, laying it out like a blueprint for survival. Trying to what? Rewrite us? She waltzes in, overrides my rules on meals, on playtime, on everything, and the kids absorb it. They think love means swallowing your voice. I won't let that be their normal. We protect them, or we lose them. Not to her, but to this poison. She gestured to the journal, its worn cover catching the light, a silent testament to the words she'd poured out alone. I've been writing it all down. The patterns, how her affection twists everything. If we don't set boundaries now, real ones like locking the door to uninvited storms, we're teaching them to build walls inside themselves. Daniel's eyes flicked to the book, then back to her, his jaw tight. The air between them crackled, his hesitation no longer a pause but a weight, pressing down like a choice unspoken. Could he see it? The slow demolition he'd helped shore up? Lena held his gaze, resolute now, the anxiety burned away. I'm done waiting for you to pick us. The next day, the heirloom table gleamed under the kitchen light. Its polished oak, a silent sentinel of Mara's unyielding traditions. Carved edges worn from decades of decrees, passed like heirlooms themselves. Lena stood at its head, the battered journal clutched in her hands like a shield, its pages frayed from nights of furious ink. Her voice, steady as the spine she'd finally straightened, cut through the heavy air. I've let this go on too long, she said, eyes locking first on Mara, then Daniel. The intrusions, the decisions you make for my family without asking. Mara, you barge in during the twins' fevers, overriding my care like I'm invisible. Daniel, your silence lets it happen. No more. Our home has rules now. No unannounced visits, no dictating our parenting or finances. We decide together, or not at all. Mara's lips tightened, her fingers drumming the table's edge as if claiming territory. Boundaries? This is family, Lena. Loyalty isn't a list of no's. You're ungrateful, twisting my help into harm. She leaned forward, voice honeyed with accusation. But Lena didn't flinch, flipping open the journal to a marked page, her resolve a quiet fire. Read it, Lena said, sliding the book toward them. Words stared back in her tight script. Her help erases me. The kids see it, fear in their eyes when she overrides. This isn't love, it's control. This is the harm, the panic attacks, the exhaustion from tiptoeing around your expectations. I demand you see it, acknowledge it, or admit you're choosing this over us. Daniel's face paled, his chair scraping as he shifted, eyes flicking from the journal to Lena's unyielding gaze. For the first time, he saw her, not the deferring wife, but this woman, voice level, hands steady, the fear that once choked her now forged into steel. Mara scoffed, pushing the book away. Dramatic scribbles won't change blood ties. Silence fell like a weight, Daniel's mouth opening, then closing. He stared at the table's grain, the symbol of his divided loyalties, as the room thickened with unspoken choice. Lena held her breath, waiting. Would they yield, or let the quiet betray her again? In the evening's aftermath, Lena stood in the entryway, the cool brass key heavy in her palm. The front door, once a welcoming arch to Mara's endless intrusions, now clicked shut behind her with a finality that echoed through the quiet house. She turned the lock, deliberate, audible, and felt the uncertainty twist in her gut like a half-formed doubt. What if this was the line that snapped everything? The twins' laughter drifted from the kitchen, a fragile reminder of why she was doing this. She walked into the living room, where Daniel sat on the edge of the couch, his hands clasped, eyes fixed on the floor. Mara hovered just beyond the window, her silhouette sharp against the porch light, pressing her face to the glass like she could will the pains to dissolve. The evening's argument had spilled out there. "New rules," Lena had said, voice cracking at first. No more unannounced visits. No dictating the kids' schedules or the dinner menu. The house was theirs now. A sanctuary, not an extension of the heirloom table's polished demands. "Daniel," Lena said, her tone steadying as she faced him. Action pulled her forward. She couldn't just stand there. She set the key on the coffee table, a small metal sentinel. "This lock isn't against you, or the kids. It's against the way we let things bleed in until there's no air left." Her hands trembled slightly, but she crossed her arms, anchoring herself. Mara knocked once, softly at first, then harder. The sound a muffled drumbeat of protest. Daniel looked up, his silence thicker than before. Not the old evasion, but something watchful, like he was measuring the space between them. He didn't move to unlock the door, didn't glance away. That shift, subtle as it was, fueled her. The uncertainty ebbed, replaced by a resilient core she'd inked into her journal nights ago. This was her duty, protecting what she'd built. Outside, Mara's knocks faded to a resigned tap, then nothing. The locked door held, a boundary etched in steel, guarding the warmth flickering from the kitchen light. Lena met Daniel's gaze. Would he step into this new rhythm with her, or pull them back to the familiar script? The question lingered, unanswered, as the house settled into its reclaimed quiet.